Okay, hello everyone. This is Tolga here. I will be with you on these travel podcasts. We will be talking different topics. There will be 10 different podcasts. We will all talk about mistakes, failures about the tourism in Mongolia, and such as the podcast will be accommodations, transport, destinations, food. We'll talk about all the mistakes, the failures, and how we avoid it. So it'll be very interesting travel podcasts, more and more. Okay, today's topic is about the general tourism and how to plan it, and what about budget. And we will talk about how we make mistakes on this. So today we have a special guest, Tom Browning, who's been living in Mongolia for 2 years. He's been living, working, and traveling. So, hello, Tom.
Hello, hi.
Hi. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I've been in Mongolia now for 2 years. My name's Tom Browning Stamp. I'm here with my partner. And there's a question coming up about that later, so I won't say any more at the moment. But we've loved being in Mongolia, and it's very nice to be part of a community and a culture. And, as well as traveling, our business of education and teaching has really allowed us to really fall in love with cultures and really experience them more than just a holiday, but actually being part and living it. So, yeah, it's really cool.
This is one of the benefits, isn't it?
Yeah,
you
definitely.
Work and travel as well.
Yeah.
Well, very interesting. So, as well as English people, you are very good travelers. So, I just wonder, when do you start traveling?
Yeah, it's a good question.
How it began?
Yeah, I think different people in England and in Britain, they travel in different ways, and as with all countries, there are people who go extreme and people who go a bit closer to home and people who don't leave home at all.
Okay.
I think for me, travel always started with family. When I was young, my family used to get together in the UK and go on camping trips. And, one of my first memories is the smell of an old canvas tent that my grandfather gave me. And I was allowed to sleep in that by myself, with my other family members in other tents around. And just that sense of adventure, even being at home and on a campsite, and that.
How old were you then?
I suppose it must have been quite young, from the ages of 4, 5, 6. We were out camping. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, it seems the traveling is one of the things you have to do. So the culture seems like so. Is it? Lots of people talking about I went on a holiday, went to this place and that place. So where does the travel education come from?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think, our geography and history topics are quite strong at school, and I think that does instill a lot of, exploration and wonder into the children. I think maybe being an island nation, having had a lot of explorers through our past as well, may be part to do with that. England is beautiful and is very different, but it is also, quite similar. And so, to get a much hotter climate, you do need to travel. To get a much, much colder climate, you do need to travel. So I think, there are things out there that means that it's different. England and Great Britain is a small island, which isn't as diverse as maybe other countries and places. So that could be another, reason for people to travel.
Well, for us as Mongolians, this is one of the things the traveling is in our blood already.
Yeah.
And because of the migration we need to do, because of the seasons change here, then all you have to do is move around. And this is, for long periods, long time, we've been doing it. So without, moving, without migrating, without traveling, we will be so bored. So I think it's for Mongolians, it's in the blood. So I thought, it's kind of similar to the people who live in the islands. want to get away.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy, and I think here it's almost like more of a state of survival, isn't it? You know, following your herd, making sure they're fed, and you know the weather is appropriate for them at the time of year. Yeah, I completely agree. I think maybe we've moved away from more of that need to survive, and it's now a completely pleasure thing in the UK.
Right, yeah. So the next question is what the travel it means for you. Is just there's a lot of people nowadays thinking, you know, the traveling is one of the luxury things you do.
Yeah.
So is it the need, luxury, or is it, you know, the education, experience? What is it for you?
Yeah, I think for me it's the experience and the education. It's having lived in now a number of different countries, it's very heartwarming and humbling to fully understand a different culture and also let that influence your life and how you live it. Mongolia is a fantastic experience for that and for learning how caring and kind people can be, especially people who have very little, and how they will give you everything to make you feel welcomed and humbled in their country and in their home. And that's been a big eye-opener to me. Big eye-opener.
Nice. Very nice. Right. So we've been talking about when you were 4 years, you started traveling with your parents, and so when was it for you actually starting your own travel, proper travel, planning and doing it, just the whole thing.
So as we sort of grew up, me and my cousins, my aunties and uncles and parents, we'd all venture a little bit further into Europe, a little bit further. I was very fortunate that both of my parents are teachers as well, so we always had a bit longer for our summer holidays, so we could sort of pack the car up and off we went. And as we started our sort of teenage years, this sort of moved into big holidays in the south of Europe. Again, camping, not luxurious, but absolutely having a fantastic time, going to the bakery each morning to get fresh bread, those sorts of experiences. And I suppose that it started then. You're meeting people from different cultures, you're meeting different families from, the rest of Europe who have gone on holiday to the same destination, experiencing the local cuisine, local weather, and starting to learn things about local areas. I remember very specifically when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old, I was on the beach one day and I was playing with a little boy. I think he was German. And he sort of explained to us that his family had found this secret beach and it was about 10k away. And he gave me directions on how to get there. And I've always been sort of fascinated by maps and directions. And so I memorized these. And I went home that evening and I convinced my parents that the next day we were going to try and find this beach. And I don't know why they trusted me, but they did. And I gave them the directions and we followed them to the T, and we were going down dirt tracks through sand dunes in just, a normal family car. And we found this absolutely beautiful deserted beach. It was like a Bounty Bar chocolate advert sort of thing. And it was gorgeous. Nice. And, then it sort of got the nickname Tom's Secret Beach, to the extent where my parents went back year after year and loved it. So I think that was a really sort of pinnacle moment of, oh, actually, there's a lot to discover out there, and you have to listen to people and learn from them, and that was good. And I think having that at 12 was great. Then before I went to university, I lived in Australia, and that was good as well because it was a similar sort of Western culture to what I was used to. I was there by myself at the age of 17, 18, 19. I was working in a school and had a fantastic time, and lots of the families and the staff would take me out and show me experiences, and I think that was good. And then after I finished university, I suppose, was the time when I started thinking about planning trips, and one of my memorable trips, and a few friends will have a chuckle about this, was a skiing trip to Bulgaria, where a whole lot of experiences happened, we'll call them. And we had a fantastic time, but it was certainly a holiday that will stay in our minds, and it was a complete eye-opener to the world of travel, and certainly the world of a travel as a young adult. And then sort of, I think the big exploration for me was moving abroad to teach properly, and living in Kazakhstan for nearly 7 years. That was a fantastic experience, and it gave me a proper grounding. It gave me somewhere else that also felt like home. It gave me friends. It gave me places. It gave me a real purpose. And so that sort of went on the next level beyond a holiday to a travel experience.
We will talk about more this kind of destination later on. So, so just out of interest, for English, for people in Britain who travel around, so there are countries you must have covered. So it's like one of the places like Portugal and Spain. Is that true?
I think that every sort of country has its go-to destinations, whether it is easier visa restrictions, whether it is cheaper flights or sunshine. I think every sort of culture's got that. And I think that Spain is the place where a lot of Brits do like to go on holiday. They feel that it's out of their comfort zone, and it probably is, but they get a lot of home comforts there as well. And so I think, I agree that there are places that British people go, and Spain is one of them. But I think that there's other countries and cultures that tend to go to a certain place as well. Yeah.
Back in 1997, I started in tourism in Orlando in the US. Mm-hmm. And every night we went out, of course, as a young teenagers. And I discovered so many the English, British students were there, and also lots of travelers coming from England. So I thought, this is the country where you travel a lot. So it's like you have to cover this. You have to go there. Yeah. From a very young age. Yeah. Okay. Now is the planning. So it's so interesting for me. Mm-hmm. Is there any experience or the country you planned it so long or found it so hard to organize or to plan to come there?
Yeah. I'm a meticulous planner, and I like having lots of things planned. And actually, I've hopefully got a motorbike trip to the south of Europe in not this summer now, but probably next summer. And that's one I'm going to try and go a bit more freer on, not plan as many things. But yeah, no, a trip that springs to mind is that we bought a small motorhome, a van basically to live in. And we were, at the same time that we bought our van, a friend bought a house in Bulgaria. And so I jokingly said to him, we'll drive down and see you in the summer. So we spent about 4 or 5 weeks doing 16 countries to go and see them and come back. And that was planned to the day, in order to get the mileage in and, to cover things, but also to see different places. And for me, the planning and the preparation of the trip is almost as exciting as the trip. The research you put behind it, where you want to stop, what you want to see, who you want to see. I think that's a really big part of, planning a trip, is that you make so many friends from around the world, being in the world, that you don't know when they're going to pop up and where they do pop up. And I think if you cross paths, you really need to make that effort to see them at that time. And we had a couple of those on that trip, meeting a friend from Kazakhstan in Montenegro for lunch, for example, things like that. So that's really good. And I think with the planning of a trip, you start to talk to people about the trip, and then they share their recommendations. And we've had some great, restaurant recommendations, or there's some big waterfalls, but don't go and see those. Go around the back and see those. And that sort of thing, I think, makes a really big difference to your trip. And so the planning is important, and I think it should take a long time and should be enjoyable. And if it's meticulous enough, it should cover everything you need it to.
Okay, you have your partner right now. So is it? Does it make you? Is it affecting your decision to making the travel plan or not? It can be good, bad, and things.
I think one of the unpositives, one of the negatives that we've had recently, is that we were planning to get married last summer 2020, and unfortunately, due to the situation, we couldn't.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah. we got engaged here actually, which was lovely, in Mongolia. And it was a bit of a shame not to be able to travel back last summer due to the restrictions and things. But hopefully we've managed to move the plan so it'll be this summer. So, I mean, that would be the only negative. I think, with every relationship, you need to have things in common and things not in common. And lots of our travel plans are in common. So that's really great. We do also have travel plans that aren't in common. And I think, you can still do those, but you need to be considerate of the other person and have those conversations. And, my partner, she likes to go off hiking with her friends around Scotland, actually, or take her family to different destinations. And that's what she really enjoys. And it's nice for her to have that time with them as well. And I suppose I'd get my fix by doing a bit more extreme sports, heli skiing and skiing in funny places and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Well, very interesting. So I think you have something in common as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yes, it seems, when the young people get to know each other, it takes quite a while. So sometimes, especially when you got married, so then you have to look, the same direction and things. So that affects quite a lot of things because you have a planning for your life and traveling, kids and things. There's a lot of things. There's so much complication.
And I think with it as well, you are a team and you form that team as you get together as a partner, and then even more so with your marriage. And I'm quite fortunate that my partner, she's quite what's the word? She wants to explore. She wants to see places, and quite a lot of the time she'll sort of suggest something, and then I'll sort of look into it and go down the planning route, and and come up with the deal. So that's quite a nice way to work as well. For example, Scotland's a great example. There's a route in Scotland called the North Coast 500, and it's 500 miles around the coast of North Scotland. And she wants to do that, fab, and so we're planning to do that soon. So I'm map drawing, researching cafes and distilleries and beaches to be at. So it's fab. Yeah, it's good.
Wow, you're doing a very nice thing. So be careful. Drink and drive.
Oh no, don't drink and drive.
This is back in Scotland. You see, the whiskey tour is one of them.
Yeah, we'll have to have a campsite nearby.
Okay, I see that. Yeah. When you travel alone, and when you travel with your partner, does it make you, if you are alone, you feel more, stronger, or when you have partner with you, you feel more stronger? Which
I think I feel more relaxed when I'm with my partner, because it's almost like the pressure and the burden is shared. Whereas when you travel by yourself, it's your responsibility to do everything and to get yourself from plan A to plan B, and to work those problems through, whether it's depicting a language on a train station, or someone approaches you and you don't quite know what they're saying. So yeah, I think it's a very good question, and I don't travel necessarily alone, because when I do my activities, it's often with a group of friends. So the dynamic changes, but that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yes, because the traveling with your partner, so you get to know each other quite well, and each travel, you discover something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but maybe something you don't like as well.
Well, it happens. That's life.
Yeah,
that's life.
So and also you get sort of some ongoing jokes, don't you, throughout holidays and throughout travel. And our little ongoing joke is that my partner's not allowed to book any transfers, because we were once on holiday, and these sort of children's trains that drive around malls or seafronts and things like that. That was our transfer to a hotel, which it wasn't very good. So that's our ongoing joke, that we got a children's train to a.
Okay. Well, with this question, for Mongolians, we say happy wife is happy life. Is it applied to your country?
I think that applies to every man around the world.
Okay, we're in the same track. Then. Now, we were moving on, because we're talking about the planning, and so was it any failure? So we just talked about more mistakes. You made mistake when you were planning to come to the country, then you regret it, or it just happens, made the locals angry, or some drinking problems you had, or you had to stop the tour and leave the country. Was there any experience on that?
To be fair, I've not had any problems with those sorts of things. I'd like to think I try and go into places culturally aware, or certainly able to be open-minded and learn the culture. I have seen that happen to people. I have heard stories of people not doing very well in the country, and often it's that person's expectations or beliefs that's got them into the trouble, because something is different to what they're used to. They think that it should change to what they're used to, and that's not necessarily right. So I think that people do find that, and certainly people from the UK do find that a lot. And there is stories of how Brits behave when they're in Spain.
Could you tell one?
Oh, Jesus. Well, I think, Brits and drinking in Spain is a big story that's pretty big, and there's even television stories about it now, television series, Brits abroad and this sort of thing. And it's there. I think that they maybe feel too relaxed where they are, and don't feel that they should take responsibility when they should. And I think that that's really important. By all means, go out, have a drink, have a lovely time, but you should always be able to remember sort of where you are, how to get yourself home, and not put other people at a burden because of your behaviour. Exactly.
When you on holidays, travelling, you have this different feeling, like you have normal days.
Yeah.
So you're just more high, you're just more relaxed, and you want to do something else. So I think that might change people a lot.
Yeah. And often, it's a time off work, and that time is precious. And I think that, if people want to relax and unwind, and that's, it's fine, but you've still got to be responsible for yourself, haven't you?
Yes, people want to have fun, but still have some responsibility going on. Okay, the next question is about, the planning. It seems there's quite a lot of, the holidays. Not as many as we do here. So especially the Christmas, Easter, you always travel. Is that every single holiday you plan for traveling?
Yeah, I mean, being a teacher, a British teacher overseas is very fortunate, because we tend to stick with the British holidays, and so it gives you chunks of time to travel, and chunks of time to see places. Being fortunate to live somewhere like Mongolia, what a great time to travel, during those periods. And so people do plan lots of holidays, because they can sort of set them in advance. They can put it in their diary. It's something to look forward to. And I think that's what, my partner and I is having something really nice to look forward to after a long period of work and, hard work. I think that makes a big difference to sort of reach the end and to have that. Personally, I love to go home and see my family at Christmas, and during the summer holidays. So those are the little holidays that we have in between, those bank holidays and the extra days around weekends, those 3-day weekends. It's nice to sort of do something in country, and go exploring that way. Yeah.
Right. The next question would be, how many times do you have the proper holidays, in every for the year, maybe 4 weeks holiday, or do you divide it into two and take 2 different holidays?
Yeah.
How does it work?
So when I sort of travel home at Christmas, I wouldn't really say it's a travel experience or a holiday. It's more of a time to go home and touch base with friends, family. Often at that time of the year, every business is off work, similar to sort of the Sagan-Sar period here. And so it's really nice time to catch up with friends and family and see them. With regards to sort of the summer as well, it's a time for us to go home and touch base. And I would say that we do plan a trip over the summer for just us. And then often we have another trip during the year as well, maybe an Easter trip or an October half-term trip of a few days. So I would say possibly 2.5, 3 a year. Yeah.
Great. You still travel a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. You said you've been to Kazakhstan before, and have you traveled countries similar to Mongolia, like culture-wise and living conditions and?
Yeah. So I'm not really keen on the word similar with regards to talking about travel, but no, it's fine. No, I think that it's important to sort of understand what each individual country is. And I've been to some of the surrounding countries with Mongolia. I've been to Russia and to China and to Kyrgyzstan and lived in Kazakhstan. And although there are trends that you can see throughout all of them, they are very unique in their own way. And it's, even from, for example, the west of Mongolia to the center of Mongolia, having the Kazakh people out there and Mongolians in UB, it's that sort of travel as well, because even within country, there's such differences. But yeah, I think there's strains of similarity across many, many parts of the world.
What about the differences? I mean, can you tell the differences between Kyrgyzstan and Mongolia? Because this quite close to each other.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest difference is the name for a ger. Obviously, it's a yurt, and is a ger and things like that. And I think the ger in the yurt is a very good symbol of similarity yet difference. How the Mongolian ger has its uprights in the middle, whereas the Kyrgyz ger has its pinnacle at the top, and how that's designed decides on the tribe or where they are and things. So I think that's a very good symbol of similar yet different.
Sometimes we call it felt nations.
Yeah.
So we can cover Mongolians, Kazakhs, and Kyrgyz and Uzbeks who live in the Niger. So they have the velds, so we call it Veld nation.
Oh, I haven't heard that. That's a bit of research for me when I get home. Thanks.
Okay, please do. Okay. Because the reason I'm not asking is it's just we're in the Central Asia, and there aren't many. If you're thinking about Mongolia, people don't know much about it, so they cannot tell the differences between Kazakhs, Mongolians, or Kyrgyz.
Yep.
So biggest the difference you've seen amongst these.
Yeah, fair
nomads.
enough. I mean, to be fair, the language and the sound of the language, even not understanding it, is probably the biggest difference. Obviously, visually, people look different. And I think that this is sort of where our naivety from the West comes in. And I think that needs to, people need to be a bit more conscious of, what they're saying and how they're saying it, because if you really know these people, then you would know the differences, and vice versa. When people travel to the UK, I'm sure that the same sort of thing happens, and I get mixed up for being Northern European quite a lot when we travel, and I get people speak Norwegian and Swedish to me, and that's fine. It's really lovely, but when I turn around and say, "Oh, I'm very sorry, I don't understand you," it's a bit different. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to tell you about the modern days of Mongolian traveling. Well, maybe I should divide it into during the Soviet period, because I'm talking about modern days of traveling. If we talk about the overall, it's just lots of involved with migration, trading before. So now it's narrow it down to modern days. So during the Soviet period, the people mainly started in about the 50s and 60s. They went to Russia before, and some Soviet other countries like Bulgaria, East Germany, and to study. Their main purpose were study only. Then when they come, they'd like to, it's like they bring their children to show around a bit. This is how it's done, and because of some people were living in a diplomatic mission, they lived, and so they were this kind of happening in the 50s and 60s, and up until 80s, we were only allowed to travel within the Soviet countries only.
Yeah.
And imagine we had the limit on how much the currency we have to carry. That was about the 60 rubles. Well, that was the maximum we had to bring, and that was some of the disadvantages and things. But anyways, we did a little bit of traveling, not a lot, but because of the mind of traveling was different. And when the Soviet regime just collapsed and the world opened, I mean, actually, the Mongolia was open to the world. The world was always open. And then the people started to traveling on their own, starting trying to go to, we call it third country, which is the UK, West Germany, Japan, America, United States, and things. We started to travel, but of course it's all about the economy. Because in the 90s the economy went down badly, and there weren't many really traveling. All of a sudden, about 2000 starting to pick up, and we want to go traveling, and we want to see the world around. Then very first choice was the beach. We don't have the beach, sea beach and ocean, so we went to more of this China, the Hainan Islands. I remember I've taken my first the Mongolian group back in 2002 to Hainan Islands and Thailand. So it was amazing. The Mongolians started to get more travel educations, and of course, so some went for work and some went to study, some medical reasons. Then I think it's shaping. Now is the people in Mongolia have more understanding of how to travel around. Even nowadays, the solo female traveler down in Africa and some traveling in South America, but it's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. So I think it's, of course, its economy is doing quite well nowadays, and people earn more money and to travel around. That is happening. So what about now, back to the question, what about now it's under COVID? It's hard to travel, but it's just interesting for me, how you plan your traveling in during the under COVID.
Yeah. So I think it's important to still have those desires and to still have the want to travel and the want to travel for pleasure. I've just stopped putting dates on things, as it were. So, I'm still making my maps. I'm still making these trips. I spoke briefly about a motorbike trip to Spain earlier. I've got a trip that I really want to do on a motorbike down the Pamir Highway. So I'm still planning the maps. I'm still doing the research, but the date is TBC'd, as it were. I think that, we need to all take responsibility during this time to keep each other safe and to do our bit as much as we can to look after each other in this situation. I feel that if you need to travel, then you should be able to. But I think that if you don't need to travel, then you should be able to, to do that and to keep the other people in the world safe at the moment. Because if we all do that, then, hopefully things will come back around and we'll be able to manage this virus and live with it and go back to having more freedom. A year out of our lives or not a long period out of our lives in the whole scheme of things isn't a big chunk, and it could be a lot longer if we're not careful. The other thing is that with the virus and travel, you've got to look after everyone, I think, and that's the big message I think that people need to hear.
It is indeed. Yeah. So what about within the country, the Mongolia? You have a potential of traveling within the country.
Yeah.
But recently, about in 2 months' time, so we've just forbidden to travel countries, sort of.
I think so long as we're following the rules that we've been set and following the government's advice with regards to travel, that you can if we're allowed, and that if it's within the government's guidance. And I think that's a real sort of point, and it's thinking about where and what you'd like to see and how to do it. We've been very fortunate over the past few months that Terelj and places local to UB have been open, and that it's safe to do so within the IMAG. And I think going that sort of route is safe, keeping on day trips and those sorts of things, making sure it's not in massive groups of people. Follow the guidance.
It was so lucky last year, wasn't it?
Yes,
last summer was incredible.
Last summer was incredible, and I know that the tourist industry within Mongolia didn't do as well as they normally do, and it was a tough season for them. However, being a foreigner stuck in Mongolia, I was so privileged and so lucky to be able to see what I saw, and so I was flabbergasted with the things and the places that we went and what we did, from small camping trips to big trips out west with yourself and having a great time seeing, just not seeing people and seeing some fantastic places. Yeah, it was incredible.
Yes, that was a very good opportunity last year. Okay, it's interesting for me. So we're talking about the more destinations. Well, if you were not under COVID, so how do you choose the destination?
Yeah, very good question. I do like to choose destinations I've not been to before. I like to choose destinations from people's recommendations, and interesting places with something that's a little bit quirky to go and see. For example, I refer to my skiing quite a lot. I've skied in sort of Russian Siberia and places like that, and going to these off the beaten track places. So those sorts of destinations, as I said earlier, sort of having friends around the world now, being able to travel to see them and also to visit new countries at the same time is a big bonus. We've got some friends who work in Malaysia, so that would be lovely to go and see them. They've just had a couple of children as well, which, so that sort of thing as well. Seeing people, but also experiencing the local cultures.
Okay. We've been talking pretty nice, such a lovely about this tourism. So let's talk about this, making mistakes. How to when you're choosing destinations. So how you make mistakes? I mean, in general.
I think you can make a mistake by not doing the research before you choose that destination. For example, not getting a visa. If you need a visa to travel to that country, a few people have done it. Not checking your passports in date before you travel. People have done it. People do it. It's not a document you look at regularly, but those are sort of mistakes that I won't say his name, but someone quite close to me has done. Getting to a ferry and not being able to get on it because his passport's out of date. So I think that those are the sort of the big mistakes that people can make. But then there's also little mistakes. Not doing a little bit of research before you go. I have made one of those mistakes where we flew to the Southern Hemisphere for the Northern Hemisphere's summertime, thinking it was a summer trip, and obviously it was their winter. I'd only taken one jumper, but it was fine. It wasn't too bad at all. And things like that. People do oversee, and it's easily done, even with experienced people who have travelled a lot. Yeah.
Well, do you do repeated tours?
Yeah, if it's a fantastic place, of course, and often to show other people. I would happily, do a tour or do a guided tour, and certainly with, my extreme adventures, I always take a guide the first time, and then if I feel confident, then I would lead a party and guide the second time, to gain that experience, the local mountain knowledge with skiing. I do repeated tours, and it's nice to sort of go back and see places. Often if you go once to a place, you haven't seen it all. As we know, the world is massive, and even each village, each town, each city is massive, and there's always things to explore. I do repeated tours, mainly to sort of places that...
Yes, this is very true. The world is so big, so much to see, so much to experience. Yeah. So so you have no regret on doing the repeated tours before? No, and people say, "Oh, you're going back to there," and it's like, yeah, but I went to the north, now I'm going to the south, or those sorts of things. And as people sort of even in UB know, they won't know every sort of corner of UB, and they won't know every cafe or bar or restaurant. And so it's nice coming back and doing that exploring thing, and living in countries for a number of years. You never see the whole country, and the world's. I don't think anyone could ever see all of the world. Very true, very true. So, okay, the next question is more about in looking into your pocket. So this is the budget.
Yeah.
So it's just very important, the travel budget,
Yeah.
to travel. And how do you plan it?
Well, I think, it's important to understand that when travelling for pleasure, there needs to be some disposable income for that to happen. Travel shouldn't put you in copious amounts of debt. It shouldn't give you a bad feeling afterwards because you've spent that money.
Have you had?
No, I've not become into copious amounts of debt because of travel. I think people do regret spending money sometimes because they don't feel they've maybe got value for money, or they've quite spent it the way that they wanted to, and in reflection, they think, oh, I should have done it differently. Buying souvenirs is a fine example of that.
There you go.
Yeah. Certainly, in some countries, you feel, blimmin' heck, I've paid X amount of dollars, and that person's paid half the amount, sort of thing. I think that budgeting is very important, and personally, yes, budget a lot. Make sure I sort of check how much things will cost when I get there, and being able to have my budget, but then also live on that as well. And I think it's really important for travellers to do that, not only thinking about how much they might spend at home on the cost of living, but the fact that they're not going to not have a kitchen to cook at, so they have to eat out. Those sorts of things. The prices of food, I think, is the thing that can creep up on people. If you compare a cup of coffee in UB to a cup of coffee in London, you're almost 10 timesing the amount, and so it's things like that people really need to consider when travelling.
Yes, it's just so interesting. How do you see your the budget planning? I mean, okay, when you're looking at you've chosen the destination already, and okay, how much is that? Okay, this much.
Yeah.
Then you immediately have a plan, or is it just okay?
Yeah. So during the planning, I try and summarise the big costs. So this big trip to Bulgaria, for example, calculating the mileage and the cost of fuel, that was one of our biggest costs, because obviously fuel back in Europe is ridiculously expensive for vehicles. And then when you've got those big costs, then it sort of gives you a summary of what you need to save or you need to find with regards to money. I have got a little pot of money, as it were, that I try and save up for holidays and use that to pay for things. So having that little bit of the holiday fund, we call it, as it were.
Okay, you just a little bit separate.
Just try and save a little bit over time. And when you, like I said, planning trips and looking forward to them, I think it's also, personally, I really like to pay for things before I go. So sounds really simple, but paying in advance for a return flight, you can come home, it's all sorted, done. Paying for a hotel out, if you can pay for it in advance, then when you get there, that's not a cost that you have to manage and budget while you're there. That's done, and you can move forward, and the money you've got is for the time you're there. That is a personal preference. I know that people would do it differently. Some people enjoy putting big amounts on credit cards and doing it that way, but yeah, no, that's not how I like to save up, and part of the planning, part of the excitement.
Sure, exactly, yes. Right, so you've been living in Mongolia for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you do know some Mongolians. Do you see some Mongolians, the budget planning, doing the budget planning for travelling?
I can't say I have, but I think that's probably a positive thing, because there's never been a worrying conversation about money when I've travelled with Mongolians. It appears that, like I maybe wouldn't discuss my budget with people, that they haven't discussed it, but they've got one and they're happy to stick to it. So from my experience, I've had no negative experience, so it must be positive, would be my answer.
Okay. All right. Related with this question, so how do you see the Mongolians been travelling around, so compared with, some other countries?
So within the country?
Exactly, within the country.
I think I love how travel is not an issue. And I think it boils down to sort of the Mongolian, the heritage and the ongoing culture of, like we said earlier, about being a nomadic person and being able to move and herd. And it's just part of life. And, friends and colleagues who go on a 20-hour bus journey home for to see their family for a week, or to go and support their family. I think it's remarkable how it's just I'll just jump on and do it. And I think that it's also remarkable how light Mongolian people travel. They don't need a lot of objects. They've got small amount of luggage, and that's remarkable. I need to learn to do that a little bit more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for sure.
It seems, the last 2-3 years, it seems so much traveling happening from Ulaanbaatar city to other destinations.
Yeah.
So it seems, is not going to slow down, or is not going to be stopped. Seems more and more people are really traveling. So this is so interesting for me to look at that. Seems everyone started to have vehicles, and I think the roads.
Yeah, the roads are improving. Yeah,
improved, and then they could reach one destination to another. Yeah, 12-hour drive and things.
I'm going to give you a question on the spot as well. Do you think that there's been a lot of talk about people moving to UB to find work and to move to the city recently? Do you think that might reverse eventually, and that people might want to live in the countryside? Because where I'm from in England, if people do their work in the city and then move to the countryside, and it's very common to be living in the countryside and it be an aspiration, whereas here people tend to move to the city.
Yes, very good question. Looking at statistics, and it said that over the last 10 years, the people moving to city is a little bit slowed down, but still, people are moving into the city.
Yeah.
But it seems, as more, the infrastructure, the roads being built, you're easy to drive from your home to UB is nowadays, people, especially young generation, thinking about, living in the country, back to the country actually. So it's just happening, but it's not so much of, or we see it, but it's slowly happening. So the one living in, for example, Tuvamek in Zomod is about 50 kilometers from here.
Yeah.
And the road is so good. Yeah. So they just drive in.
It's almost a commute, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's just
a daily commute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You see, the weekend you have so much traffic. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of cars coming from country coming to a city, have a good time, and end of the weekend they travel back.
Yeah.
So I could see the driver the license plate says somewhere else. So there's quite a lot of them. It's just happening. So maybe more in the future, the people living because of the provinces, the provincial capitals, they are improving, and the life is not bad in there. So just people start to travel easier,
and that will also support with the tourism, because it will give people more destinations to go. If you're a UB resident, whether you're expat or local, it will be nice to go and see those towns and have places nearby to do the reverse and show our number plates in their iMacs.
Yes, well, hopefully it would develop one. One of the tool products can do that. Right. Okay. So when you see, there's so much of the mistakes the Mongolians making while we are traveling. So what is the big issue you're looking at? So you can't travel like that, and what can you say for the Mongolians?
From my experience,
yes.
I don't know if it's it's certainly not pointed at how Mongolians behave abroad, but certainly generally how people throughout the world behave in different cultures, is just to sort of take a minute and try and understand what's going on. Try and read that situation. If you walk into a restaurant and it's really quiet atmosphere, that's probably how the local people in that place, that's how they interact and how they socialize. So going in as a very loud person or a loud group is probably not welcomed. And that, so I'd say read situations and try and understand a little bit from where you are, just by looking around and seeing how other people are behaving. And I think that's a bit of a key, because if you don't do that and you behave in completely opposite. You're going to alienate yourself and maybe go down the route of having those problems that you asked me about earlier. And I think that's a really important factor to take. Wherever you travel to, you're a guest.
Sure.
And if you were going to your grandparents' house as a guest, you take your shoes off, you'd be on your best behaviour. Maybe people need to behave a little bit like that as they travel around the world. Pretend you're going to your grandparents' house.
Exactly. This is what the Mongolians say. If you drink the water, you follow the rules to this region.
Yeah.
So this is one of the sayings. So it's just interesting. How did you imagine when you come to Mongolia for the very first time?
Yeah. So I said earlier that I didn't like the word similarities, and I thought it would be similar to Kazakhstan. And when we first arrived, I realised it wasn't. And that's, it's great because they're both very fantastic countries that, I love dearly. Culturally, some of my colleagues who are, first time out of the UK and living somewhere like this, they were culturally shocked. I felt warm inside. I felt almost at home from being in Kazakhstan for so many years and enjoying that difference and being able to sort of take it in as a good quality rather than as a worry. The first thing that we sort of heard about was how to get a local taxi. So the day we arrived, we walked out of our apartment and got a taxi to Sukbatar Square and had a lovely walk around and, found a few things. The fact that Google Maps works so well was a massive help. I find also that people are so friendly here that, it's never been a worry or a problem.
I see. As a traveller, so of course, I'd like to know your point of view. Do you prefer going with the organised tours or individual tour?
Yeah, I think they've both got value. An organised tour can take you to places you would never dream of going by yourself. For example, last summer, Tulga, and we thought about planning that trip by ourselves and driving out there, but actually doing it with yourself and with a bigger group of people was probably safer. It was gave us a better cultural experience of meeting different people and having those discussions, and so that had a lot of value. Going on sort of tours in less different places. For example, going on a tour around a UK city, probably not my cup of tea. But I think that it depends on the situation. There are value in both. It's nice going out and exploring by yourself in some places, but it's also nice to have a guide in others. There's also downsides to both. When you're with a tour, you've got a schedule to keep, and it's not your schedule. When you're by yourself, the responsibility's on you. So there are pros and cons to both, and I think each different situation needs a different approach and a different mindset to accept that challenge.
Do you think Mongolia you can do on your own easily or not?
With a Western perspective,
exactly,
I do not think you can do Mongolia by yourself.
Why is it?
Because it is so different from what Western people are used to. Navigation is completely different to how we navigate in the UK. What else was I going to say? The roads, as we've discussed, the access, the language barriers, the distances that we have to travel here, and also how hard it can be to travel those distances. We may only travel a few hundred kilometres in a day here, but it will take all day. Whereas, in the UK, you could do 1,000 miles on the roads, and that would be a big day's driving, but that's a lot of coverage. So I don't think that people should, if they're from the Western world and haven't experienced Mongolia yet, travel by themselves when they get here. Certainly by driving, maybe internal flights and public transport, maybe. But I think that you need to be very worldly wise to travel well here.
Okay, so you see there's a potential. You don't see so much potential on backpacking in Mongolia, or
backpacking
can it be done?
I think backpacking and sort of individual travel like that, it can be done here. I've heard of people motobiking, cycling, walking, and that's fine. I think they just need to be aware of what and where they are coming to, how sparsely populated it is, how there aren't shops where you can get every amenity at every junction, and those sort of differences. People who travel on the train, for example, will have a fantastic time, but I'd sort of almost say that is with a tour because you are being taken. I would just say that there are people that can do it. I'm just saying I wouldn't recommend it to the whole population. And whatever you do, just make sure you plan, send some emails, ask some questions. I've got some friends who are planning to drive across Mongolia. They were planning to the summer just gone. And actually this afternoon we were messaging, and I just sort of said, give us a call before you go embark on this trip, because it will be completely different to what you're used to. And just, I think prep is a big thing here.
Yeah, so it seems, to look is different expectation.
Yeah.
When you're doing it, it's so much, I mean, not wrong, but it's so different.
Yeah.
It can be.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of
and
reasons
that's,
there.
I think that if we think about travel within the rest of the world, we could go to any country in Europe and feel happy to drive there, feel happy to get around. And if people are coming with that mentality to Mongolia, that's where I think they need to educate themselves before they arrive. It's not the place where you can jump in a car and off you go to drive to the next town to see what it looks like. It's not that, and people just need to get that perception.
Okay, I'm down to the questions now, and we talked more about planning. You need to be careful on planning and budgeting, and more about the tourism, traveling. So I leave you some moments if you want to add anything onto it.
Well, okay. No, I don't think so. I just think, travel is a very lucky thing if you can do it, and if you can do it and have the desire to, then go for it and enjoy it and take the bad experiences as good experiences, learn from what you can, and just enjoy the world. It's a fantastic place, and we're very lucky to have it in the state we're in, and in Mongolia, exceptionally lucky to be in such a beautiful country. I think just enjoy your life. You've got one, make the most of it.
Well, thank you, Tom. That was
thank you.
Very interesting talk, and hopefully the people who want to travel and in the future planning, for traveling, please plan carefully and save some money for your budget, and to make your dream come true. And making mistakes is accepted.
Yeah.
But once you make it more and more, and you would realize how important is not to make mistakes.
Yeah.
So
or not to make the same mistakes twice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same mistakes all over again.
Yeah.
That would be crazy, actually. And so learn from the mistakes and try not to make the same mistakes again and again. So our next topics would be the destinations. How we choose the destinations, how we make mistakes on choosing destinations, arriving, and it would be a very interesting talk. Stay with us, and thank you. This is Toga here. Thank you.